flowers on your stone. We both know that I was wrong. We both know I'm not like that anymore. I'm not far behind. We both know that I was wrong. We both know I'm not like that anymore.
You are listening to By the Burial Ground, hosted by paranormal investigators Tyler Carter and Chris Stanton.
Alright guys, and it's another episode of By the Burial Ground. I'm Tyler.
I'm Chris.
And we're here to talk about aliens this episode. I know I mentioned it last episode because I didn't want to just go into only ghost stuff. You know, we're much more than just guys who are interested in ghosts. That tends to be the big focus. We actually had a covered bridge investigation that we're going to be going over in our next episode. And we're going to be seeing how that goes. But this week we're talking about aliens and UFOs and the different things that kind of creep a different part of our imagination. You know, it's not about the spirits of the past. It's more so about the things that are out there in the vacuum of space. Chris, you were in the Air Force, and the Air Force has the Blue Book and other operations that they've had with ghosts, or not ghosts, sorry, with aliens and UFOs and different things like that. Did you ever come across any of that, or look into any of that?
Those things would recently just become unclassified because there were so many findings they had to debunk or were just classified as unidentified. And of course, everyone knows the big Area 51. It's highly secured and has its share of secrets as well.
Oh, there's plenty of secrets out there, Area 51. And, I mean, I know we've both looked in different videos and different things that have gone into that. And we were talking earlier about the camo men and all the different things that are set up to protect the information. I mean, there's the trails outside of Area 51, even if you just pull up to the sign that says "Don't come in."
There's something sitting there, truck or something, sitting there at night. They're everywhere.
And they're instantly on you, you know, they're instantly. So, some people believe that, like, the mountain area around Area 51 are actually what house the
underground mountain hangers where you can't see from satellite because they totally cut that off.
Yeah, there's tons of stuff around the area that could just be decoys, or it could just be something to throw off. I mean, we watched a video earlier where there was overhead video, but all you could really see was, oh, there's some hangars, there's a couple of planes, oh, there's some commercial roads or whatever. Or not commercial roads, but there's some private roads.
Private roads leading probably their employees and stuff back and forth.
But the big deal there is that people believe a lot of that is underground.
Yeah, that's most of the secrets are probably most likely underground. What's on top is probably just like, okay, we have an airfield, you have a couple of airplanes. You can satellite that, but you never know what's underneath Area 51.
And I kind of fell off of UFOs or aliens for a while because it just wasn't as interesting to me as other things like the ghosts and the spirits and things like that. But one of the things that brought me back was this documentary on Netflix called Curse of the Man Who Sees UFOs. And in it, he identifies all these different types of UFOs that are out there. These things that are called blinkers, which don't match up with any kind of known satellites, helicopters, airplanes, military craft, um, an Eggman, which is like this bright orange one. These things he called like jellyfish, and they were ones that like blinked multicolored, but like also almost had this like translucent kind of property to them, and that really kind of got me back into looking into the sky. And since I have, I've actually noticed a couple of these kind of things, and I know I want to drag you out some night and get you looking at in the sky, but
Most likely.
how does something like that strike you? Because I know you and we go into the ghost stuff, but aliens, we don't
Well,
talk about it.
what's that phrase I always say? We're not alone out there, or there's someone always watching.
Someone always watching.
If it the spirit world or the alien world, as some people call it. I mean, I'm not more enriched. Tyler here has a great knowledge of this stuff. Yeah, I know some of stuff, but he's got a good
Well,
knowledge.
you're familiar with different types of aliens. Like you know about grays, right?
Yes,
Now, what's your knowledge of grays? Where you?
they've been mentioned in Ghost Adventures when they were investigating that house up in Roswell. That they caught some grays going across the floor and making weird noises and lights in the sky. I mean, that's the first for Ghost Adventures. Not only was it just maybe spirits, but it's unexplained figures, grays, as they would call it as well.
And have you heard of the night crawlers, which are the long-legged beings? They were
The
most,
skinwalkers.
yeah, exactly. And
They investigate that as well, and there was some weird occurrences.
when that footage itself,
That
is
night
kind of
vision,
amazing
it
because
just
it's the night vision footage,
coming down.
and it's just
And
some guy's front lawn. It's not anything like he was out looking for him. It was just his security camera on his house.
yes,
And you see these long-legged creatures just like wander across his lawn, and other people have seen these, have come across these,
yes, they have.
and a couple of other ones I have come across are like the Flatwoods monsters, which are tall humanoid figures with flat faces that almost have like spade-like flat faces. Um, the Hopkinsville goblins, those are actually pretty cool because they're like these goblin-esque creatures, what we would think of like goblins from fantasy or different fantasy realms, but they're silverish in tone, and they've been noticed similar to probably like what people see as a gray, but they apparently have like ears and things like that to make them more goblin-esque. Um,
It's funny that you mentioned that because then, like Josh Gage, Designated Truth, Iceland has something similar. They're like,
they have a couple of different. I love Josh Gates because he's done a lot of cool things.
and there's unexplained stuff that
Yeah.
these little gnomes or whatever.
Well, there's all these like lore creatures or fairy tale creatures from different societies, and like they're like fairies or gnomes or whatnot. But when you look into these different things, it's like how can these overlapping creatures show up in lore that never had a chance to meet? In cultures that never had a chance to meet.
They just don't want to be discovered. They're unexplained. I don't know.
I mean, if you met people, maybe you wouldn't want to be discovered most of the time.
No.
Anyways.
That's weird because you mentioned all these people seeing stuff in different places. You never know, like you said, and it might be just humanoids that come down once in a while, scurry through the forest looking for stuff, then vanish. And that's why people, or when they investigate, you don't find them because they're not there.
Yeah, they've already moved on to a different area. And we're not just drawing from things that are just speculations or, people just like putting out theories. I mean, there have been documented military cases where they've come across UFOs, not just in recent, but I mean, think back to the Battle of LA. I mean, that was a situation where we unloaded rounds, just massive rounds of ammunition into the sky, trying to shoot at some kind of UFO. It was an unidentified object, that's a UFO. And they completely just blew up the sky trying to shoot down what this was, you know?
Yeah, you just showed me that video. That was like I never thought that was real. I thought it was just some cheesy Hollywood movie.
Well, and they made a really terrible movie about it, but there are actually there's a real story that inspired that, and just recently there was a couple of Navy airmen who were out and were shooting video on a plane, and as they're going across, they come across this UFO, and I mean, it darts right into their camera. They lock it on the sides, and it was all around the major media, and yet has already fallen off. I mean, it's a real documented case where the military has come out and said they saw a UFO, and yet has already fallen off, and people are
Oh,
talking
I'm
about
pretty sure the military has another classified investigation name. I'm sure they still keep record of debunking or unexplained flying
it.
aircraft.
But this is one where they literally presented the footage, and people got interested, and there was, it definitely like caught attention, but you're not hearing about it anymore. And I mean, this is real documented footage of a UFO.
What does someone say? Oh, it could be a drone. Not the way it was moving.
No,
Unless there's some new experimental drone out there that they're flying around.
and there
But
were seasoned pilots in those seats, and they both were just whoa, like they were astonished. They were blown away by what they saw.
exactly. They were very blown away. They couldn't even understand it.
And it's crazy when you get into all these different kind of aliens. I mean, aliens go back to the most ancient of our cultures. The Sumerians believed in the Anunnaki, and I know this is something you've kind of recently just been introduced to.
Yes.
But the Sumerians believed that An, the god, had these descendants, or maybe was a part of these, creatures. But the Anunnaki are these lizard people, and lizard humanoid, but they are said to be the people who set up our cultures, who provided the Sumerians, the Egyptians, the Mayans, all these different cultures.
That's why they got those big pyramids. I even know that you can't have enough slaves to move rock like that to be such perfect I don't know how you say it.
Geometrical,
Yes.
they're perfectly geometrical, and they line up with stars in the sky, and they're said to be things that people use to communicate, like satellites or some kind of like.
Is it one of the seven wonders of the earth?
It is.
One
It's
of the big
wonders
the
of the, yeah,
Egyptian.
yeah. It's one of the seven wonders of the world, and I mean for good reason. It's amazing. But these Anunnaki are not only tied to those, but more ancient cultures, and have even popped up in recent history, where you had the lead singer of the Smashing Pumpkins, Billy Corgan. I mentioned him in the last podcast, and I said Chris Corgan. I've been listening to a lot of conspiracy podcasts, and Chris Cornell's been popping up a lot. And for some reason, my brain got kind of like twisted up with that one. But I meant Billy Corgan of the Smashing Pumpkins. He, on Howard Stern, Joe Rogan, has talked about encountering a shapeshifter of sorts, where he was with somebody, they were a human, just walking in somewhere, and then all of a sudden they changed. Like, he literally looked away, looked back, and they changed into this creature and acknowledged what they were. Didn't give him too much information, but acknowledged this form.
Is it funny? It sounds like exactly like a skinwalker. He can form into anything as well.
Yeah, and I mean, shapeshifters are something that, like, the Native Americans believed in and other cultures believed in.
Yes, they did.
There was a story once I read of two brothers, or I believe it was two brothers, maybe two friends, but they came across these pelts in a shack, and the pelts granted them the ability to turn into wolves, and they were very powerful wolves. And in this form, they caused havoc. They were terrorizing and they were causing tons of issues to the communities around them, killing people and raping things and all this kind of stuff. That's an ancient story of shapeshifters, and these Anunnaki are said to have predate that. They're more ancient than that. So there are certain temples that people believe because of how the steps are spaced out, or things like that, that they're for the Anunnaki, like 12-inch steps instead of, like, I think
Our normal step.
our normal steps are like 6 to 8 inches or something, like, along those lines. Um, but these creatures that were a little bit bigger than us, it would have made sense for them. And I just find that really interesting that our most ancient of ancestors believed in aliens, and today you have people dismiss it and kind of laugh at it. And same with ghosts and what we discover.
Yeah, anything that can't be explained always gets criticized and laughed at. But yet there's a lot of evidence out there showing that, hey, like I said, we're being watched. We're never alone. Someone's always trying to communicate with us, either from the spirit world or the alien world.
And I mean, the Anunnaki had enslaved people in past, apparently, and were using them to mine. And people say they still watch us today to make sure and look at what we're doing and what we're maintaining. I mean, that's one of those weird theories I've looked at just because of how much it overlaps with different things. Because Scientology, which is a popular religion,
Yes, it is.
I mean, and some people call it a cult, but
Yeah.
one of the things that they believe in is a reptilian overlord. I think it's like Zorp or something like that. But they believe in reptilian. I mean, how many different religions or different cultures have believed in, like, these reptilian? I mean, the Egyptians had reptilian gods in
Aztecs,
the lore.
Mayans.
Yeah. So you start to see how much of this overlaps, and it really draws up some questions. And
How they just disappeared except for the Egyptians.
some people believe that the Anunnaki actually took the Mayans and just moved them to the next step, or took them forward. Yeah, because they just disappeared. Their whole culture disappeared.
Gone.
It's
No
really interesting.
No one can understand why a civilization like that was so huge, just gone.
What do you think is one of the things that really keeps people afraid of aliens?
Knowing the truth.
Not only that, but there's got to be something more. I mean, people believe wholeheartedly about certain religions and would defend that till their death. But with aliens, they'll instantly be like, "Oh, that's something childish."
Some are friendly, obviously. Some encounters I've watched, and some are not so friendly. So
I remember being a kid, and I can't find this video anymore, but it was a video I saw on TV, and I'm not sure if it was on news or if it was on, like, some show, but a bunch of men, and they look like cowboy types, probably some men in a certain community in, like, a desert-ish area, but there was this cave, and it was a night vision shot, but these men are on horseback, and you see these alien-style creatures carrying something to this UFO or something, or they're carrying something away from where the camera's looking, and these men on horseback charge down at these alien creatures. They scatter, and I can't find this video.
maybe they took it down for some reason.
But I just remember as a kid seeing it, and it was one of the first videos. I mean, obviously, I can still remember it to this day, but it was one of the first videos. I'm gonna, like, why would we want that to be our first encounter? If aliens were real and they were here, and maybe they were just collecting something from those caves or whatnot,
Yep.
why would we want our first interaction to be to charge at them aggressively? And I think these guys were firing guns and everything.
Maybe, like you said, knowing the truth, they'll be too scared and they'll be doing irrational actions that would cause harm to our civilization. And maybe the government took that video down as of, you never know.
Have you come across any videos online where you're like, Man, I wish I could have seen that again, where you can't seem to find it again.
There's been a lot of weird things in paranormal, and a couple of alien ones. Most likely, I think this, like you said, like that race you mentioned, could be associated with the skinwalkers because someone from the couple that we met saying there's actually, I couldn't tell you where the location is in Ohio, that they encountered some skinwalkers somewhere, but I would have to talk to him again and exactly find out
And you
where.
said their life was a little bit busy right now, so it's harder to get out there and investigate that one.
Yeah, because they just had a baby too, and yeah, and it's harder for them to come to investigations like they did in the past.
Well, I mean, and I'm gonna have a baby here soon as well, so it might cut into a little bit, but I think that we gotta continue to search for certain truths because, you know, we recently had our investigation that we went on. It got cut a little short because we've got some stuff going on at home, but we we were out there and we went live and we were showing what we were going through. You got some pictures on our way out. And we still got to go through some footage. I had a camera that I haven't even gone through the footage on yet.
Yeah, I haven't either.
We're gonna talk about that in our next episode. So we're going back to ghosts and paranormal and the spiritual realm on the next one. So look out for that one. We'll have our third episode up then. But getting back to the subject, I mean, UFOs have been spotted all over. And one of the things about UFOs is that it's not always necessarily pinpointed to being something related to aliens. Sometimes people think other governments' crafts. Sometimes people think that they're actually time travelers. That's one of the big theories about UFOs and modern UFOs is they're actually time traveling devices and people from the future checking back on certain points. Like we would watch TV, they can go watch a certain history or a certain part of time.
Right. No, I haven't encountered any of that, but it's,
I mean, what kind of concept is that? Like, could you imagine just
it's
like jumping in a time machine and going to look at a certain part in history?
oh,
I mean,
that I would go a lot of different parts of history just to see for myself.
I know you're a sports fan. I'm sure you'd like to go back to some points where some of your teams were a little bit better.
And yeah, and also like war history from the Revolutionary War, the Civil War, World War I, World War II, all those that spiked my interest to this day.
And there's a lot of interesting things within those wars. I mean, outside of the the interesting things that have come from war. I mean, some people have knocked it, but certain technology has come from war. And I'm not saying that's a good or bad thing. Not to say that we need to have our technology developed from war,
No,
but there are certain lessons to be learned, especially from a lot of the wars we've had. And recently, wars have become something that's so common. We just see them in the news and we overlook them. And I mean, that's not the way to go about it either. We are in a lot of wars right now about silly things that aren't even related to defending any kind of freedom or anything like that. That's a whole other story. But
that's a whole other story too.
but one of the things about the people who are starting these wars is they're also the people who are telling us that these UFOs, these things you look at aren't actually real, and they're the same people that would try to discount ghosts as well.
Exactly, just like you showed me that Battle of Los Angeles '42. They didn't know what they were shooting at, but it caused an alarm, and they were just bombarding.
And
Like it,
so much ammunition was shot off at that.
so much ammo wasted over not even hitting a thing.
Exactly, exactly. And we have been exposed to certain technology, and we were talking about the Avrocar, which was that UFO like thing that the military even has. You said it was on a.
It was on display in the experimental and over in the Air Force Museum up in Wright Pat Air Force Base. A lot of experimental stuff. Where did that come from?
But it's something that looks like the things
It
of
looks like
classic UFO lore, you know?
exactly. It probably didn't go very far, but how and why did they design it? Where did that design come from? That always like feeling.
Now, you and I both have seen a lot of different movies, and not to just steer us away from anything about hard facts, but I mean, come on, let's keep it entertaining. What is one of the most terrifying alien creatures you've seen in any movies or any kind of lore
Well,
like
it's
that?
not more of terrifying. It's more interesting. Close Encounters of the Third Kind.
Oh, it's such a wonderful movie.
That movie is like maybe they are friendly and they're communicating. Some people went with them. And they gave some of our people back. They just want them to explore what's in beyond. Everybody wants to know what's beyond.
And they had that more recent movie called Arrival that was similar to Close Encounters of the Third Kind. It kind of followed that same
There's
premise.
many other classic movies that run off aliens, not just the recent Hollywood ones. But you wonder how where these people got these ideas from, or if some of it's more truth than fiction.
Yeah, no, I completely agree because I mean, there's a certain perception. I mean, when you get talking about grays, if you say gray to anybody who knows even a little bit about aliens, they instantly know what kind of creature you're talking
Even
about.
in the paranormal world, like I just mentioned, grays. They mention grays in one of their investigations.
Well, I mean, you know, the UFOs, the ghosts, all that falls into the paranormal, and that's why we're talking about all this. And I think that one of the great things about mixing it up and getting into the alien stuff is because sometimes you get instances where they overlap. You're talking about ectoplasm. Ectoplasm gets associated sometimes
With
with
ghosts.
ghosts and sometimes with aliens
Yes.
because it's this substance that doesn't make sense in a certain way. It shouldn't. It doesn't have certain properties.
Exactly. It just like you see in Ghostbusters, Slimer. That's ectoplasm. I mean, that's a kind of a silly reference, or was it that Titanic coming back to shore? But anyway,
Well,
continue.
and the thing that always interests me about aliens in comparison to ghosts, it's either something that's residual in the same place or something that's sporadic or might attach to a person. With
Or in,
aliens, they do the same thing sometimes. There are people who have claimed to have been abducted over and over and over and over and over again all through their life. They've said they've been abducted hundreds of times.
and some are friendly and some are not so friendly.
And I'm sure you've gotten into mutilation. There's reports of UFOs, and then afterwards you get like cattle mutilation and things that have come out of that. Chickens being just completely obliterated or destroyed.
Exactly.
I've always found it odd that a creature would come to this earth and would instantly want to start like blowing up chickens or trying to like attack the cows.
That seems so primitive.
Yeah,
That part's like, they want to, experiment on us and see how we tick. I guess I don't know.
and I mean I guess that abducting humans and experimenting on them, that would be.
Or make another race.
Oh yeah. Well, and that's a whole other thing.
Yeah,
Is that
that's a
they're
whole nother thing.
abducting us to try to crossbreed and have like humanoid
On another
hybrids.
planet.
Yeah, there's plenty of theories out there. I mean, I've definitely explored some odd theories in the different realms.
You're always going to have theories no matter what.
I mean, that's the fun part of it though,
Exactly.
because when you get into theories, I like conspiracy theories sometimes, and not to say that you know many of them have any kind of true evidence that seems to back them up, but if you start to look into certain details and you start to like actually read into some of the stuff, you'll see that things aren't always what they may seem.
No,
And
they don't seem.
we perfect example talking about it in this episode, we've seen people try to disprove and just discredit any kind of alien claims. Yet now we have the U.S. government and other governments coming out saying not only have they been investigating them, but they have evidence and they have released evidence. I mean, people don't understand that if the U.S. government's going to come out and tell you they have evidence on something and show you it, that's kind of a big step.
You
Not
ever
just because it's the U.S. government, but they've spent so much money and time trying to
I was
cover this stuff
I was
up.
just gonna say that you would think most of our money goes into these top secret. Obviously, there's top secret things going on. Blue Book, of course, and there was another one I just forgot about it that ran from 48 to 49 with a whole load of unidentified flying objects and investigations.
What else is out there? I mean, they've showed us enough to keep us probably off certain trails, but what other things are out there when it comes to the information that they found? I mean, have they actually spoken to certain species like the greys or things like that?
Or just the experiments on the ones that are probably deceased or ones that crashed or UFOs that crashed. We never know. They might be in fish tanks, like in embalming fluid, just waiting to see, like Independence Day.
Or frozen?
Or for
Yeah, exactly. And then they're gonna get some science guy and they're gonna control his mind and then they're gonna start attacking.
you never know.
Alright, guys, well, similar to last episode, we're gonna take a break real quick just so we can regroup, come back, and give you guys another good finish to a podcast. We'll be right back. Alright, guys, and we're back. Sorry about that. A guy in a suit showed up to the house and started asking us a bunch of questions.
It's like, what are you doing? Why are you telling these things? Sorry.
Of course, that's a reference to the Men in Black, and not to get confused with like Will Smith showing up to her door. No, it wasn't anything like that.
Enough
We
of that cool.
we believe the Men in Black. It could be a government organization. I mean, that's definitely a good something to have out there to kind of put a hush hush when people start talking too much about the
What they found or what they saw.
yeah.
Like, totally saw, not made up.
And there's also some people who believe that the Men in Black is an alien organization trying to protect their own endeavors, their own people. I mean, that's always been an interesting theory to me because one of the mysteries of the Men in Black is that they've always been reported in the same outfit. They've always had the same kind of almost like clone-like look to them where each member kind of looks like the next one, you know?
And they're always bald.
Yeah, and there's been some footage of them captured from security cameras and whatnot that has shown them a little bit taller and they kind of walk more creepily than they're like lanky and limber, but not like a basketball player, almost like
Maybe
know,
they
a little-
are.
yeah, a little bit more deformed than that.
What about the race you were talking about earlier? I
Yeah,
know.
the Anunnaki and the Men in Black have a tie-in together.
Yep.
We're gonna figure that one out next. Now, Chris and I were talking about a couple of the types of UFOs that I've seen out, because I mentioned that back then earlier, and the blinkers, the Eggman, which is a very orange and seems to be more interactive kind of UFO, all those different things that I mentioned. Those are things you can look up. Those aren't just from that documentary. Other people have reported the same things. And although it's not something you see as much, I see blinkers in Ohio. and I've come across a couple of other things, but you don't see as much out here in comparison to the different coasts, the deserts, the areas where these things predominantly show up. You know, less light pollution, more area for them to just explore, and less people out there. Which I'm assuming if you're trying to stay hidden,
And
less
that's
stuff.
the best place to go because less people, the better, I guess. I don't know. Maybe
Exactly. I mean, you don't want to have a bunch of people looking at what you're doing.
it's like, hey, hi, how's it going? They're not going to show up at your front door. Say, hey, we want to do experiments on it. No, it doesn't work like that.
And if you're getting caught up in a situation where they're showing up at your front door, chances are they're taking you with them, you
Yeah,
know?
you're gone. Maybe for a year in their time and only 5 days here. You
And
never know.
who knows how time works when it comes to that. There's plenty of science fiction movies that have taught us that time is relevant, you know, and time could change going to other planets or other systems, and
It takes time to go somewhere. Yes,
if they have spacecraft that can move through these, I mean, who knows what could happen to you.
exactly.
There's a lot of science fiction that gets thrown into what people think about aliens. I know that science fiction definitely inspired me to believe a little bit more outside of what people tend to, with just being based in a large country that's mostly Christian, which there's no big kind of beef there.
Nope.
I mean, you're a Christian and you're open to these concepts and these ideas, you know. Um,
More or less my generation, less my parents' generation. So I
they tend
never.
to stay away from
They
the
stay
alien
away
stuff.
from that. They
You know,
unexplained.
that's where
They
you see a lot more traditional ideals.
and yeah, and also I don't go into asking them about the paranormal. Yeah, did I invite my parents to my page? Yeah, it's hey, but they never go, hey, that was cool, or hey, they keep to their I call old beliefs. And pretty soon when I get old, it's going to be called old beliefs, but we'll not get into that.
Well, I think as long as you're keeping your mind open, I don't think you have to worry about being, into some kind of old belief. You just have to keep your mind open to the possibilities. And that's why we're talking about the paranormal, because the paranormal contains so much, and there's so many different, not just aliens or ghosts or monsters, but there's other things that get into that. And as we explore more, and the more things that we see and the more things we encounter and talk about, we'll grow and be able to talk about different subjects outside of just those categories we've mentioned so far.
Exactly.
I know Chris has some things he wants to get into down the road, and who knows, maybe we'll do an on-set location podcast coming up soon. I know next podcast, I don't know if I've mentioned, but we're definitely going to be talking about what was the bridge we went to, Chris?
Everett Covered Bridge
We went to Everett Covered Bridge.
in Peninsula, Ohio.
It's in Peninsula, Ohio, not too far away from us. We drove there on a rainy night, and we went live for a little bit. We had to leave a little earlier than we wanted to, but we got some information coming on that. We're gonna go through some of our evidence. He's got some stuff from some cameras. I've got some stuff from some
And
cameras.
why is it in that book?
Yeah, and it's in one of our books that we've read. I mean,
I will cover it once I get the name of the book. But that, like I said, that'll be the next podcast. We'll go into detail on that. I'll make sure I have that book on it so I can give credit to whoever wrote this encyclopedia of hauntings. I think that's what it's called. Don't quote me on it.
And don't think we're going to leave you high and dry on the information we've talked about tonight. I'm going to put some videos up on the Facebook periodically as, this episode comes out and you're listening to it. You'll see those pop up. So check us out on Facebook. We've got the first episode is up on iTunes. It's up on Stitcher, and I know we're going up on Spotify soon as well. I got the confirmation on that. So check us out, by the burial ground. It's really simple to search. This next episode will be going up really quick as well. I'm going to keep on pumping these out as we get them recorded because we're gonna hit them as we can. You know, the more stuff we're doing in our lives, the more episodes we're gonna record.
Exactly.
I know Chris wants to get into a little bit more on the paranormal with the ghosts and the spirits, because getting back to that gets him back in his wheelhouse, and I get that.
Yes.
I took him a little bit outside of his comfort zone today, but that's why I wanted to talk to him, because it's not something that he necessarily
Has
is delving
experience.
into.
I've watched it a lot on, Hollywood and stuff like that, but I really never looked into it. I always liked the sci-fi and things that are unexplained.
And
Exactly.
on our break, you and I were talking about how you were looking at the videos from people trying to visit Roswell and the areas around that,
Area 51.
and how you've been on plenty of military bases. You were a military brat growing up, right?
Yes.
And you went to the military yourself. The security there is much more substantial than anything you've seen on any other base.
They are definitely keeping a tight ship at Area 51. Yes, every military base is going to have the security, but to the extreme of Area 51, it just seems a little odd.
There's definitely something odd there. There's been so many different abnormal things happening around that area, and deserts tend to have a lot of lore around them just because there's so much you can see in the sky.
And also you can do and
we're
get away with it.
We're here in Ohio. We look up in the sky, and we have a lot of light pollution because where we're at in Ohio, it's kind of, we're in the middle of a city, So,
And close to airport.
exactly. So we're having certain things drowned out, but we'll be going out at some point to a clear night with,
And just look up.
and just look up, take some telescopes or some good cameras and just see what we can see, because I was telling Chris, we get a clear night and I will show him there are some weird things going on in the sky. Just stare. Go out. Next time, you get a chance, obviously don't leave listening to this podcast right now. Next time you get a chance, go out and stare into the night sky. Give yourself a half an hour, just a half an hour, and just watch. Keep your eyes open to any kind of changes, and you will see something that is not explainable.
Or explainable, like comets or satellites up the sky, which I
And
was
you'll see those
watching.
things as
It
well.
explains satellites just move straight while these other things zigzag all over the sky.
And watching the pattern of how something flies will indicate if it's a plane or a helicopter or something else. It's not something that you're going to see
Excuse
and
me.
you're going to be like, oh, that's just a plane.
Exactly. He's like, wait a minute, that's not normal.
I I really think that we are being visited by something, if not something from another planet, something from another time or area of space.
You just
in general.
never know. And yeah, maybe some people are doing this to get credit or get, but some people probably have credible. I mean, there's not much out there, or there's some, or some of it's fake, some of it's real.
You're gonna have a lot of disinformation no matter where you go.
Exactly. People are just trying to get a buck or get attention through the media.
And don't let the disinformation or people trying to steer you away from certain things, don't let that be something that makes you not believe in an idea, because no matter what concepts are out there that are outside the norm, there's going to be people who are going to attack it just to silence those ideas, and that's not right. We have to make sure people are able to believe and be open to different ideas.
No, that's not right at all. Because nowadays everything can be photoshopped. I was just, like I said, I was watching a video earlier. These are these photos that were taken way before Photoshop even existed, and how do you explain that exactly?
I mean, those are pictures that you have no chance of being able to doctor that, and
Nope.
yet you have clear as day things that are popping up in the backgrounds or right there in the forefront, and there's apparently files within the U.S. government, things that presidents don't even have access to, where there's pictures of previous presidents shaking hands with beings from other planets.
Exactly.
Literally with a being
Explain
towering over
that
them,
one.
shaking hands with like an Eisenhower or somebody like that. And I think we're gonna leave it there on this episode. I know next week we know what we're gonna be talking about. We're gonna be getting back into the paranormal, back into the ghosts, back into the spirits. We're gonna step away from the aliens for a little bit. I know we'll be coming back to this subject because there's always things change, and the more evidence that pops out, we'll definitely be looking into that. But next week, probably not even a week, but next episode, check us out, and we will get into the evidence we found from the Everett covered bridge, and also some of the other evidence we've talked about. I know in that first episode we kind of just used it as an introduction and really let you know what we're about, but each episode will get a little more detailed on certain subjects, and then the more things that we do, the more information we'll be able to provide.
Yeah, more information we can talk about on our future investigations or our recent investigations on the next podcast, where we can really get in depth, and you can ask questions, or you can contact either me or Tyler on our page or the other page.
And we have the email address is bytheburialground@gmail.com, just like the podcast name. It's just at gmail.com. You can get at us on the Brunswick Area Paranormal Society page. You can get at us on the Facebook page for the podcast. I get the Twitter set up. I'll get some more information up on there and start using the Twitter as well. And also, we're up on different platforms for podcasts. Check us out on Google Play. That's going to be up soon. Check us out on Stitcher, Spotify, and iTunes. And always give us those 5-star reviews so that you can hear more from us. I am Tyler.
And I'm Chris.
And I hope you guys have a good night.
Touch your dead lips, kiss your dead